Hi, listeners. Thanks for joining. Today we have something very special because, first of all, I'm together with Jay. Thanks, Jay, for joining. And we went probably to similar experiences, and we just want to share that to the listeners. So, Jay, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Just finished a nice lunch with the family and hopped on this. So yeah, excited to be here.
That's nice. So, in the previous recording, you shared a little bit that, first of all, you got divorced or you wasn't divorced at that time when we had these recordings, and you actually went back to live with your brother. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on this? So, how that all happened?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, when we talked, it was already in progress. It's been already like a couple of years in progress, the divorce. I mean, my divorce started back in 2020, COVID time. My ex was in Lebanon, and I flew back to London just right after we had our daughter. We had our daughter in Lebanon, and yeah, it's things have been rocky before we had our daughter because of like the nature of how things went. I mean, feel free to ask me like the history about this, but yeah, the portion between like the divorce and up until the point we met, we had already been in progress with the divorce, and yeah, I was in London. She went to Spain. And I was like, hey, I don't think this is working out for me. Yeah, we need to talk. So I came down to Spain. I talked to her, and we decided to split up. And that's when the divorce process started. And 2 years later, 3 years later, we managed to finalize the divorce. So yeah, it's been quite the journey. I mean, and I would say this process of like getting a divorce has been the most transformative chapter of my whole life. It completely changed me as a man and as a person. It's just changed every part of me. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of question, let me let me start with something. First of all, where you met actually your wife, and was she actually the same nationality as you?
That's a great question. So I think the history here is that like we actually met on Facebook. I was just like browsing Facebook and I saw that she went to the same university that I went to. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen her, and it seemed like we were university mates. And I was like, hey, did you actually go to the same campus as I did? And she was like, yeah, no, yada yada. I don't remember the exact conversation, but that's how we started talking. And then we kind of hit it off. I was At the time I was going out of a breakup. I was in London. I was going out of a very nasty breakup, and me and this girl, we started talking. So she was in Lebanon. She's Lebanese, but also Spanish. Like she was born in Lebanon, grew up most of her life in Spain. Um, so yeah, we started like talking and we really hit it off, and we started having this thing over um I think like over chat. We were chatting, and then uh she was like, "Oh, I want to go and study in London." And I was like, "Yeah, you should definitely do that." And I think the first time we met was in Lebanon. We decided like that both of us will meet in Lebanon, and then we continued talking, and then she flew out to London, and that's how like we started dating and moved in together eventually.
Okay, so then how long was you actually married?
Yeah, so I mean, living together was like a couple of years, and then actual marriage, it's hard, you know.
Oh wow.
I can't even remember honestly. Like I
Okay,
think it
okay,
was
but
like yeah,
you know
I think it
this,
was
not
like
me.
3 years. Yeah, 3 years in total, like between living together plus being married as well. Yeah, but no, we've known each other for like 5 years. You know, like yeah, we
Uh,
had been together for like solid 5 years between like dating, living together, and then getting married as well.
so then the other question is, what do you think was actually the reason why that failed? Was it that you changed, she changed, or you discovered something what is the red flags and you can't live with this anymore, or what was it?
Yeah, this is the golden question, right?
Okay.
Um,
Sorry that
yeah,
I
yeah.
asked.
This is it. If you would ask me like a year ago or like maybe even 6 months ago, I would say, you know, she wasn't for me. Things weren't working, yada yada. But then like now I realize that maybe I was the fucking red flag. I don't know if we're
Oh
allowed to
no,
curse.
no, no!
Are we allowed to curse
I
here?
don't like this. I really don't like this. But that, I will explain why. And then I come up with my story a little bit. So I was over 10 years together with that woman.
Wow.
And I don't know if I mentioned that to you or I mentioned that in a podcast of mine. I had a life-threatening event where I supposed to die. Even I never felt this way, but I needed emergency operation. Otherwise, I would go go out, right?
Wow.
But
Yeah.
in that moment, I needed an operation what was scheduled, and then for some issues with the dates, I decided to fly to my family to Germany to attend an event, and that's why this operation was a discovery operation was actually rescheduled. And then when I came back, I got a I can mention it. That's what they're saying. I got a heart attack, and I needed that operation, and they fixed me up. So, but
Wow.
that changed me. I don't know. I can't. I mean, nobody who goes through can actually explain this. But for me, it was I was now rethinking everything. I said,
Yeah.
okay, and I had this. I call it the inner rebel concept. I had this in me too, right? Because I didn't want to live in Canada anymore. I really want to go back to Europe. I know my ex-wife didn't want this because her family is all in Canada and she didn't want to go back to Germany. We lived there
Mm.
together. We met actually there, but then she was more happy in Canada. And
Yeah.
I didn't like it. So that changed everything. And then COVID was also something um, what had an effect, but more we never had children because she was pregnant, but she lost it in the early stages, and
Mm.
that was also when I think about this, and to be honest, that was one point because I she blamed me for this, but actually there's nobody to blame. That is just misfortune, right? And that was
Yeah.
the seed for this. And then the another thing, what I mentioned in that I was not the person I wanted to be. So when I explain that to my family or so, then they say, yeah, we went different person, and it was better for both of us that we're
Yeah.
not living together anymore because there was a lot of fights and there was also a lot of uh, I couldn't even communicate with her anymore because I know she would blow up if you say something. So I just avoided her, and I
Yeah.
tried twice to break out, and then finally in 2021 I got her to sign the sale of my house in Canada, and then we actually separated. I went to Barcelona, and she stayed there.
Mm,
And I was happy that I did this, and I only think when I'm thinking back, I should have done this earlier, but I had not the courage. I had not, yeah. But anyway, I did it, and I'm happy. And so Spain is my refugee. If I will say, I came here to escape this jail. And you mean if your wife throws away multiple times the wedding ring, then but the last time she did this, I took mine out, picked the other up, and said, "That's it."
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess having a life and death event, it changes you definitely. I mean, I've been through something like this, but it was more like self-inflicted because of depression and anxiety and burnout. But I can definitely relate to how you feel. Like, yeah, when you experience something like this, you start to have a sense of appreciation for life that you've never experienced before, and you're like, I really want to live life based on my terms. Like, I can die tomorrow, I might as well make the most out of my life.
Today.
Uh, yeah, and that's really something I've experienced, but yeah, no, back in my marriage, I hadn't experienced those things so vividly. And I do say I was the red flag. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on myself or my past self. I mean, I don't blame or have any regrets, but it's just like a reflection on the person who I was. And the truth is, back then, I was not thinking about like what should I do to be a good partner, to be a good man? What is the role of a man in a relationship? We're men, like we were talking about this. I mean, every person has a role, and maybe like the woke people will tell you, oh, gender roles don't exist,
No, they
shouldn't
do.
talk about that.
They do.
Yeah. But for me, I'm an old school guy, I'm not very old, but I have an old school mentality. I can be young and hip all the way you want, but I can't, I won't cede to like the woke movement, because I do believe that there are things which are timeless and shouldn't change, and they are universal laws, So when it comes to the genders, or like people in a relationship, every person has a role, and maybe, yeah, like for me, and it's about every person what works for you as well. Like, I wouldn't say a man who doesn't behave the way I expect a man to behave is not a man. Maybe other men have their own way of operating in a relationship, but
Okay.
for me, I felt like I wasn't doing my role as the leader in the relationship. I was just like, yeah, whatever. I was just focusing on work and making money, and whatever she wanted to do, she can go and do it. And I was like, I was just sitting there expecting her to go and work and pay half of the bills. That's all I cared about, And that was such a shitty mindset to have in a relationship, because it's unsexy, and it takes away the romance, and it waters down your position as a man. So for me, this, among many other things which I was missing in the relationship, are what led me to make that decision, because there was no attraction left between us. And I was responsible for this. She wasn't perfect, but I also was not perfect either. She's a good person. She is, a great person, and I have no ill will or anything negative to say about her. She had her shortcomings, but I did too. So I take responsibility for that. But I'm so glad I made that decision, because it was like the best decision I've ever made. Because, yes, this person might be good, but if they're not good for you, then that relationship is not good for you. And the worst thing that you can do for yourself, to yourself, is stay in a relationship that's not good for you, because, you're spending every hour of your day with that person.
So I have to agree. So I'm also a kind of old school, but then I try to figure out why. And I see as an example the marriage of my parents, right? So
Yeah.
my mom. was not working and my father was the money maker, right? And when I
Right.
started my marriage, then then I took it the role as a provider, right? And and then when she started, and I tried to understand her because she became bored, and she said, "Oh, I want now also to work, but why we have more than 10 years a common bank account, and now she works, she starts her own bank account, right? So it's became strange. So and
Uh-huh.
that I mean that was one thing. I mean I could have tolerated and I tolerated, but the most important thing was that I was not with her the person I am. I just played
Yeah.
a role, and
Yeah.
my friend said, if you together with us alone, that's the person we like, and if you're together with her, that's not you. And they said it multiple times, and then that started something. Why? And then I started thinking about this, right? And that
Yeah.
has something to do the person I became, and maybe all these events made it more dramatic or speed it up. But okay, so what I wanted to
Yeah.
say was things change, and sometimes people go in a different direction. And also, I mean, what she did was this kind of, and I didn't even know this after I read about this gaslighting that
Uh-huh.
she that
Mm-hmm.
she did that. I don't know why, only to influence me. And but yeah, so I mean, there was a story that I lost my car key. When I moved out, I found it because she hid it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy behavior. I mean, you know, the okay, one thing you mentioned is like the way the person you were when you were around her different from being you who you were when you're around your friends alone. And this is a big thing, and I think to me it was also the case, but only because I just didn't really think about like being with someone, just being myself, like, and being authentic. This was not a concept for me. Like, the whole reason why I got into the relationship with her is because it was convenient. She was there. We had good rapport. At least we had a certain level of connection, but that's it. I wasn't even thinking about like being myself and being playful and being a real man. And now I see the difference. Like with the woman I'm seeing right now, I feel like I always tell her like, hey, I can be myself around you, and she accepts all parts of me. And this is a huge thing in a relationship. Like, it's really important that your partner sees all parts of you and also accepts them. So, like, and then another thing that you mentioned is like, when it comes to gaslighting, there's a whole science out there of understanding psychology, and psychology in relationships in particular. Uh, Again, this is one of the things I was not aware of, but having some drama with family later down the line, I started studying narcissism and those behaviors like of gaslighting and manipulation and things like that, and toxic behavior. And then I realized that I was a victim of so many of those things without even realizing. So yeah, it's really important like to read on those things and understand them. And many people post about this stuff on social media, and it's become a bit of a buzzword. But it's important to have a good understanding of human psychology if we want to be able to navigate relationships. But then again, no one does that on purpose. uh, the
Yes.
biggest the biggest thing for me is like, when someone does gaslighting or toxic behavior, it's probably because they have trauma in their lives. They're acting from a place of fear.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah.
I mean, what I say also is that this person, and I don't want to, how should you judge her or say something bad, but if I think
Yeah.
about it, I would. have to had someone where I can have the connection of intellectual and this kind of conversation, what I couldn't have with her because she was not on that level, and that's not her fault, right? And but I'm happy for you that you found another relationship because I'm not able to have another relationship because I'm still wounded and yeah, so I'm actually afraid to go in another relationship right now. And yeah, that's my status. So I tried it and that didn't work out. And after that, I actually almost be more happy with myself right now.
It's great. It's great that you find, a way to be happy by yourself. But how long was your divorce? I mean, how long have you been separated for?
Well, it was 2021 actually. So it's almost 3 years.
Okay, that's about enough time. And you tried to date? You said you tried to date since then?
Yes, and that was a kind of I have a yeah, it was a failure. I mean, yeah, but the point is not that I'm not good in dating, to be honest, but I'm good connecting with people. I mean, I met another woman last week, but and yeah, just I'm good with connecting, but if it's on dating, I'm not good.
Yeah, I was in a very similar position, because since my divorce started, I went into like hermit mode and monk mode as well. I was like, I'm not thinking about this. I just want to think about my career, my business. But then I always had this need, and yeah, I'm also very good at connecting with people. I'm able to build relationships and, talk to people. But I haven't had a very successful history in dating either. So I was always telling myself, like, fuck that. I just want to think about my future, my career. But then I had this need, I always had this need. Like, as a man, you need to be with
Yeah,
a woman.
yeah,
Like,
I know what you're talking about. But here's a story. Couple weeks ago, remember, I'm always talking now with people to get them on my podcast. So I talked
yeah.
with someone I met here in Madrid, and then she said, no, she doesn't want me in my podcast, but we still keep talking. And then she invited me because she was here on vacation. She invited me to visit her somewhere else. And yeah, and she said, oh, and then I actually decided to fly there, but in the last moment, I didn't go. And
Oh.
and first of all, I had a fear of rejection because it seems for me that what she said, yeah, you can stay with me and whatever, that was then not the case. And she messaged me, oh, I don't have time, maybe on the weekend. And then I said, no, I'm not flying. And then I was trying to figure out, uh, yeah, because I had a good connection with that person and we had good talks and everything. But I felt also that she put a seed in me. She wanted to convince that I visit her in her city outside of Spain, and I wasn't. Yeah, in the last moment I booked. In the last moment I canceled that, and we said
Oh.
no. And and I still have contact with her, only in with chat, but anyway, so and then I really went in myself and figured out why I did this because it was really just the day before. Can you imagine the day before that? No, I'm not flying. and and I found also many other reasons. And then I figured out by myself to be self-honest and said, yeah, you have to fear to be rejected and you go there and then I learned something recently that you shouldn't invest feelings if you meet someone. Because if you do this, then especially if I call myself a high sensitive person, then that it's becomes a drama. So the better is what I just learned that don't invest any feelings and go there and just figure it out. And it can work, it can't work. But if you have expectation, of course, then there might be met and then not be met, and then you have this fear. So that's what I'm dealing with this right now. And yeah,
Right. I wouldn't say don't invest feelings, but rather like manage your emotions, you know? Manage your
not
emotions and
yeah,
your
that's a
expectations.
good word. Manage
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah, you want to manage your emotions and expectations. Like, for me, I'm not gonna invest emotions in a girl that I just seen on the street and I'm like, oh, I love you so much. Like I haven't even talked to this person.
No,
Uh, and but I know what you mean. Like often I've been in a number of situations where like I'm so afraid of seeing this through because I'm afraid if it's gonna fail, I'm gonna be so disappointed. uh, but then I realized that, putting ourselves in a cage, yes, it does protect us, but it's also a limitation. Like, how are we going to experience the world if we're always trying to protect ourselves from the hurt? And so I've learned to embrace that, to embrace the pain and embrace the hurt. And now it's happened a number of times. It's happened a number of times, and I feel now I'm dating this woman. We're doing great, but only after like a number of repetitions of like unpleasant situations and nasty breakups, and I wouldn't say nasty, but painful breakups. Truly painful. Um, and this is all thanks to working with my dating coach. And I definitely think that you could use a conversation with him, because the work that we did together, it really transformed my perspective on relationships and on myself as a person and as a man. It really contributed to my growth so much. Yeah.
thanks, listeners. That was part one. Don't worry, we have a second part. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe there's something what we said helps someone, woman or man. Who knows? And thank you again for joining. And please listen to the next episode. Bye bye.